Hello, everyone. For those joining our pre-submission meeting, we're just going to wait just a couple more minutes to make sure we get all the attendees joined with us. Okay, I think we can get started. We have about 50 attendees with us, so we can get started. Hello, my name is Carmen Martinez. I'm with the Department of Planning and Development. Today with me, we have a number of our departments also going to be here to be able to answer some questions, as well as provide any additional feedback to some of your questions and comments. So for those attending, hopefully you're at the correct meeting, but we're here for the Belmont Triangle RFP pre-submission. Just want to quickly go over the agenda. We're going to do very quick welcomes. Like I said, I am Carmen Martinez with the Department of Planning and Development. I have with me as well, and I won't go through all the individual names, but we have representatives from Department of Housing, we have AIS, we have CDPH, we have ARO representative, Ricardo Lopez. We have as well some other people from law. We have Arthur Jelinski and Lisa Misher. We have Tim Jeffries. Discuss questions about TIF. We have CDOT, Bill Higgins and Kevin McGinnis. We have Sarah Rubin with us. So a number of folks from our departments are here if any questions should arise. We're also going to be having just a very informal presentation for those of you that are interested in this RFP. All the documents have been posted online through the Belmont Triangle website, as well as our city.gov RFPs website. So I'm just going to briefly go over some of the high points of the RFP. We're going to have well enough time for questions and answers, and then we're going to wrap up really quickly on conclusion, the next steps. So some of you may be asking, why an RFP for this project? This is not a city-owned property. We've gotten some questions from some presidents and some developers. This really is intended to assist with soliciting creative development proposals for the department. Typically, this is for city-owned land. Like I mentioned, this is a private development, and we are working with the owners to assist with making sure that the development that does come here is thoughtful. It will also assist with understanding of what the city and the community has voiced as far as their priorities. The RFP will also make sure it will give details regarding the property information, some of the zoning implications, desired urbanism that we may have, some of the understanding of the incentives that are available, and just making sure that we address the high priority topics that we've discussed with the community over the last few months. For those that have attended previous engagement efforts. This is one site in this community, but early on we identified this neighborhood, this community definitely has other opportunity sites that could be additional, programming opportunities that we could take a look at, sparks of development that could be a result of this particular project. And another overview of the context site. This project is, as we have dubbed, Belmont Triangle, and it is bordered by Milwaukee Avenue, Belmont, and Pulaski Road. Across the street, about southwest, we have Lorca Elementary School. We have the Shoemaker Lofts, which is right across from the development site, as well as other adjacent schools, the field lofts. So there's a number of open space, educational businesses that definitely would benefit from this development. Some context photos. For those of you familiar with the site, it is bordered by a mix of residential, business, retail. This vacant lot, about 4 acres, is mostly vacant. We have an existing gas station, BP gas station on the corner. We do have a functioning Walgreens that is still there, and that is not part of this project. We do have also an existing restaurant that we will later show in another slide, but primarily we just want to show an area of, this is a really large site, a lot of vacant land. It's been there for quite some time. So we are here really just trying to assist that the development that happens here is mindful of the community input as well as the department's priorities. Again, this site is consisting of all of these parcels, as you can see. We have, like I mentioned, the gas station and the automotive repair on site. The current zoning for this is B3-1, community shopping district. Just recently, this parcels are eligible for TSL benefits now that it's included in the ETOD Connected Communities Ordinance. And once we get a development proposal, we start getting questions, we can further go into those details of what that could be. The current access on the site with our proposal, this is a concept plan, and that's something that we can discuss a little further in the presentation, but the proposal today is really about an overall concept. In the event that there are other iterations of this concept that we see, one thing to be mindful of, there are existing alleys that would need to be maintained and or reconfigured, and any of these alleys that would be requested to be vacated, the developer would need to pay for the alley vacation. Now, again, that is something that we would address later on once we get some proposals that we can look at, but just to be mindful that there are existing alleys that we would need to work with CDOT to make sure that this is under their, acceptance of their review. Existing zoning, as I mentioned, is B3-1. Here are the existing businesses that we had noted. Again, most of the ownership is with 2 owners. Walter Malika owns the majority of the parcels, and Saji owns the BP gas station right here on the corner. This is an existing restaurant that it's not part of RFP. That's not one of the parcels that's listed for sale, but from my understanding, there could be further discussions with that. So what most of you here today is to discuss the community vision that was included in the RFP. We did a number of public engagement events, either online, in person, and virtually. We held some surveys, we had some discussions with community members and with some organizations, and the number one thing that we heard clearly was the request for open space, having a variety of public spaces that were accessible, that were safe, a mix of type of open spaces, things that were accessible. Obviously, included with that would be having active spaces around those public spaces. So our proposal that is included in the RFP is taking all of those ideas and putting it into a concept. And again, with this concept, we took in consideration all of the major priorities that the community had given their voice on. Our in-person workshop, I think, was the main driver for how this concept came to be. For those that haven't been a part of the engagement up to this point, I suggest that you visit our Belmont Triangle website. That actually has the 3 initial proposals that our design team came up with. And from that and the community input came the final proposed concept that you see here. A majority of, again, of the concept and where this came just from, hearing the community, listening to the survey results that we received. But one thing that was also very clear, and something that any developer bidding on this should be aware of, is that we do have a desire for significant affordable housing with this development, having family-sized units. And again, if you haven't been a part of any of the other public engagements, there are recordings online where you can listen in on some of the feedback and some of the comments that we received. The financial incentives overview, this is included as well in the RFP. But again, we're just going to quickly go over. There is the Fullerton Milwaukee TIF that is within this project. It is expiring in 2024. So that's something that we included, but just keep in mind that it is expiring 2024. Property tax incentives that are eligible, we have the 7A, B, and C. We have the Class C, which is, I guess for this site would be for commercial properties. There's also the property tax incentive for the state, the HB 2621. And this is the 3 tiers of property tax incentives for new construction, and we have residential buildings with 7 or more units. And when we get to that point, we can also go over the details of what that means. We have the new market tax credits for commercial industrial developments of the properties that could benefit attracting investment from qualified community development entities. And again, this is just a summary. All the full details are within our RFP document. Now, because the site is going to definitely trigger an ARO, I have asked Ricardo Lopez to join our call today, and he's provided some background information on possible options. What does that mean in this area, and a couple of mixes that he can review with the developers on the call. Ricardo, are you able to jump in?
Hi, Carmen. Do you want me to speak to this?
Yes, if you could, please.
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricardo Lopez. I'm the ARO project manager with the Department of Housing. What you're seeing here today is the ARO geographies map, in which indicates 3 main different geographies with addition of the Pilsen Little Village. Each geography represents different set of requirements under the new ARO. The inclusionary areas, which you see here as the green areas, is what we call the inclusionary housing area. There, the set aside requirement for ARO is 20%, of which developers have the option to pay in lieu up to 50% of that set aside. The white hash area is the community preservation area. Requirements are the same, with the exception of the as it relates to offsite units. The Belmont Triangle site location falls within the community preservation area. Again, the set aside is 20%, of which developers have the option to pay in lieu for up to 50% AMI. The difference here is that if a developer were to explore the offsite option, meaning that if they choose to provide some of their required units offsite, those offsite units would have to be within a 1-mile radius within the community preservation area. And the rest of it is the Lomar area, which remains at 10%. And then there's the Pilsen Little Village pilot, which is not applicable to the Belmont to the Belmont Triangle, but it's there still because it's in effect. You want to go to the next slide, Carmen? So here we wanted to lay out an example for you to give you a sense of the various different options available under the new ARO. Here we're looking at say there's a mid-rise residential development with a total of 60 dwelling units. There's 4 different scenarios here that you can look to. Scenario number 1 is to put all the required ARO obligation on site. So out of 60 units, that would mean that 12 ARO units will be provided on site. Scenario number 2, you could choose to place 15% of your total set aside on site, which will be 9 units. And then you can do the 5% offsite, which would be 3 units. The reason why one thing to note on scenario 1 and 2 is that there's the state property tax incentive, which provides a 25% assessed reduction, property value reduction for developments that elect to place 15% of their units as affordable or more. So under scenario 1 and 2, you could qualify for that tax incentive. And then the other scenario number 3 is 5% on site, which is required by, it's the minimum required by the ARO, that out of your total set aside, at least 5% has to be provided on site. And the number 4, and the last scenario here is you can elect to do 5% on site, 5% off site, and that would meet your 50% obligation. And then the other 10% could be paid in lieu. So this is what it will look like under a proposal of 60 units. It will be 3 units on site, 3 off site, and then 6 that will be paid in lieu. The other thing to mention here is that developers do have the option to provide a lesser set aside in exchange for larger unit sizes, larger family size units, or by producing deeper levels of affordability. For example, instead of providing a 20% set aside, you could do a 13% set aside, but at a weighted average of 40% of the AMI units. Or if you were to apply the family size incentive, you can exchange 2 studios for 1 3-bedroom unit. The next one, Carmen. And then the last one here, just another quick fact to reference point to make here. The new ARO does take a weighted average AMI approach to target different income limits. In Avondale, the median income of a household is about $73,616. Here gives you a sense of what the AMI for a household would be for a 2-person, just to give you a sense of the different levels of affordability that we're able to service through the ARO. And then here's some infographics to give you a sense of what that looks like for a single household or a household or family of 4. And I'll turn it back to Carmen.
Great, thank you, Gustavo, for giving us that summary. And again, these are some general options that Gustavo tried to summarize, but it is there's a lot of different options that could be done. Again, this is just a very general overview. Once we get to that point, we could have further conversations with Ricardo on the ARO options. So now just briefly talk about the evaluation criteria partnership. Again, this RFP, although the lot is not a city-owned lot, this is private parcels. It still is going to be a project that we continue the efforts of Invest Southwest, where we are using the evaluation criteria of building community wealth, having equitable control, collaboration and support with community-based organizations, community residents, and the aldermen. We're making sure that we have community engaged on some of the priorities that they have voiced, as well as the city has worked with them throughout the last couple months. Having professional qualifications and specialized experience, development teams are important. We also expect that the project will adhere to recently released neighborhood design guidelines, design excellence principles, as well as work with the organizations that are currently working in the community, such as the ongoing Avondale neighborhood plan that CDOT is currently working on. There are organizations that are working with CMAP as well to get community input. So development team would also need to follow up with other engagement opportunities that are happening in the community. Projects that are economically feasible, taking a look at some of the partnership models that we have done in other RFPs within West Southwest. We're going to continue to strive to have inclusive economic development, having a focus on development teams that maximize participation and ownership of local Latino Black residents in all phases of the project, as well as having expectation of the team's demographics to have experience working in urban communities of Chicago. And again, like I mentioned, this project, although it's not a city-owned lot, we are trying to achieve design excellence for all of our projects that are happening through the city. Avondale is a very important community, and we definitely want to make sure that whatever development is brought here is also to the same level of other projects that we have ongoing. And for those that haven't seen our neighborhood design guidelines or taken a look at some of our design excellence resources, please reach out to me and I can make sure that those documents are accessible to you. Very quickly, we're going to go over just the RFP and engagement timeline. Currently, where we're here in step 2, 3 months process. The RFP has been released. It has been posted online. Today is the pre-submission meeting, and our due date is going to be October 21st for the RFP. So at this stage, we are receiving questions. We're going to be listening to resident comments, to bidder questions. On the next slide, I'll kind of briefly go over some of the timeline that we're going to be participating. Part of the evaluation is also going to have DPD-led evaluation committee. We're going to be taking a look at having presentations by the bidders to present to local stakeholder groups. And once that final selection is made, we will be, again, having opportunities for more community engagement. And just because of the due date comes October 21st does not mean that engagement stops. Any development that does get selected, that does get proposed, will again need to have continual community input and evaluation, as well as working with the Alderman's office and DPD. And once we get to step 4, 6 to 9 months, that's when we're going to get into the meat of the project of doing the selection and negotiations. And again, with more continued engagement. So now we still have a few minutes left. I know a few people from our department need to jump off, but we have about an hour allocated for questions and answers. So I would encourage anybody who does have questions just to make sure that we capture all of our questions in the event that we run out of time. Please use the question and answer chat. You can put your questions in there. Anything that doesn't get answered today, we will make sure to get answers for you, and we will post them as an addendum on our website. So are there any questions at the moment? Okay, so Lucy, are you able to hear me? I know you put a question in here regarding the sound being improved. Does anybody else have an issue hearing me or hearing anybody else? Hopefully that's been resolved.
Carmen, I think that it was just a little bit muffled
Okay.
during your, maybe it's something to do with your microphone. Or
Yeah, if you could try moving the mic closer to your mouth, that might help.
Okay. It might have been my loud PC that started off early on. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. Okay. Trying to see if there's any questions. Do we have any immediate questions from any developers or design teams that are on the call?
There's some questions now in the Q&A.
Okay, good. I'm sure you guys don't want to hear me speak this entire hour. So Ruben asked a question, is the audio recording going to be made available to the public? Yes, it is. Today's recording will be posted online for those that were not able to attend today. Laura's asking a question. The RFP mentioned the attendee list for this meeting would be shared. Will the presentation deck also be shared informational site? Don't recall me mentioning attendee list would be shared. I don't recall anybody asking that, but it certainly can be. And the presentation as well could be shared online. There's nothing here that wasn't posted in the RFP, but yes.
Hi, Carmen, this is Chris. Yes,
Hey,
we
Chris.
will share the list of attendees, and we will post that online as well.
I don't know, Carmen, if you saw this first question, the maximum height of buildings proposed.
Oh, sorry, Jordan, I didn't see your question. Hello again. We've met on other occasions. There is not a max height proposed in the RFP. Again, the current zoning is B3-1. This concept, you know, as we've shown, has a variety of options of being able to have multiple stories, you know, 5, 6 stories. And the caveat now is that the site is now included in the connected communities ordinance. So at this time, there isn't necessarily a max building height proposed, but we certainly are open to discussions once we see proposals come in. But there will be a need to have the site rezoned. Okay, Lucy asks, what does the timeline look like for moving forward? Okay, I can go back. So not sure if you were on the call at this time, Lucy. The timeline, we're currently in the phase step 2, where the RFP has been released. There is 3 months for development teams to get their teams together. The RFPs are due October 21st. And once we get those in, then we'll move into the evaluation period. We'll be taking a look at proposals come in, the shortlisted RFPs, then we will go into taking a look at, you know, having the evaluation committee take a look at those. And then we will continue with community engagement after that point. Oh, I'm sorry, you meant for the groundbreaking. Does it look like that would be for 2024 most likely? That's not too far along. So I think that's possible, just depending on how quickly the team can get assembled, you know, how quickly they can move through the development process and our city review process, but it's not undoable. Okay, asked again, in the last meeting, it seems like there was height limit set. I think that was raised as a strong concern by the community. We didn't, I don't recall us setting a height limit. I think what we did during the workshop exercises and on some of the virtual community engagement meetings that we had, we did discuss, you know, what the options could be if and when bulk and height were to be placed on the site, where were the best locations, or what parcel. And I think some of those proposals that we reviewed with the community also took into consideration the bulk and height. So the 3 concepts that were presented to the community in May, those were the ones that were discussed. And I believe, you know, the comfort level that I recall was you know, taking a look at the adjacent residential building across the street and seeing if there was you know, a comparable solution with taking a look at that height and, you know, not exceeding that, if that was the proposal that would get move forward. And I recall that we also had talked about, you know, a compromise of, you know, if one proposal were to bring in a different concept than what was in the RFP, we would take a look at, you know, what that would mean, what bulk and density could be moved around the site to still maintain the community priorities. But definitely we would take a look at the building height once the proposals come in.
And Carmen, I just want to make sure that it's clear that, as part of the bidding proposals, the teams would need to submit their analysis of the zoning, and we would do the evaluation as part of our committee, and we would do the developer presentations. We would gather community feedback as part of that process, right? And then after the team is selected, they would still have to go through an entitlement process, a zoning change to propose the number of units that they would like to build, to propose the height that they would like to build to. And so that whole zoning process would still need to take place before a project could actually be implemented here. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's not outlined in these steps, but it's definitely something that would need to happen. You have it in the zoning entitlements list. So I just want to make sure that that's clear for everyone. And that's a city council that would have to be reviewed by Plan Commission and then forwarded on to city council for their determination.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. Yes, that is accurate. There are many levels to the proposals that come in. There's many avenues of making sure that we take a look at bulk and height and density. Are there any other questions that we didn't address yet? Someone asked, is attendance at this meeting required in order to bid the project? No, it's not required. We will have this recording posted online. We will have the presentation also posted online in the event that someone wasn't able to attend today.
Carmen, you got a couple of questions there about the restaurant, the old Pepe's restaurant that's there.
Oh, that's right. Okay, let's see. John asked, you mentioned the restaurant for sale. For discussion. Yes, so that existing restaurant that is on site, I think I can try to go back to that. There is an existing restaurant here, and that parcel is not part of the parcels that have LOI with us. The last time there was a number of attempts to reach out to that property owner. We were unsuccessful with trying to get that conversation going with them. I believe the business is leased from that building. And again, I believe the last of those communications had come to were continuing to have outreach to the building owner itself. So at this point, yes, that parcel is not included. Again, this is an overall concept plan for the entire site, but I believe the last attempts to reach the actual building owner, we weren't able to get them a part of our engagement process. But
so just to clarify, Carmen, because I think your mic is still a little bit muffled, we were not able to reach out and get any kind of agreement with that restaurant owner, but that doesn't prohibit someone else from trying to do that on their own, correct? And trying to assemble, if they would like to, more property.
that's correct. Thank you, Cindy.
And Cindy, I would just say, I mean, for the people who are interested, I mean, it is an owned and operated restaurant. It's open today. They are serving. So it would be somebody who has a existing operating business on that site.
Okay, and I think we've answered most of these questions. Are there any other questions that we might have while we have all of our departments on the call still?
And Carmen, could you just go over again, if people don't have questions right now, which it seems like we're not seeing any, if they have a question, you know, that they think of tomorrow or next week, who do they email those questions to?
All roads will lead back to me, Carmen. So again, like Cindy was saying, today is not the last time people will have the opportunities to ask questions. We're going to have more community engagement. I could definitely share my email. I will put it in the chat. Had some last minute difficulties here. I will be compiling all the questions that after today we get, you know, we're going to compile questions ongoing. Again, questions will not be answered directly to bidders asking questions about the RFP. I will collect the questions and we will post them on our website as an addendum. Depending on how many questions we get, I'm going to try to collect some every couple of weeks. In the event that I get a number of questions this week regarding the proposal, you know, we can definitely release more addendums, but I think we'll continue to update that addendum question answer sheet as just a best way of making sure everybody has the most up-to-date questions and answers. But also, you know, we're going to try to be mindful of the due date of this RFP. The due date is October 21st in order to make sure that we answer questions regarding the RFP. You know, we're asking to just be mindful of that time and to allow us enough time to be able to respond to your questions, especially if they are detrimental to your proposal. We're going to shoot for September 30th. You know, hopefully, you know, those interested in the project are able to take a look at the RFP and assemble their teams. In the event that something does come up and it's, you know, a question that has to be answered, of course we will answer the questions, but you know, just be mindful that we're going to try to have all of the major questions answered as soon as possible. And again, we are going to have stakeholder meetings where we'll have the development teams present to our stakeholders, as well as working with our aldermen and the PPD. There's going to be more opportunities for people to see the projects that are proposed and shortlisted. And I am seeing that there's a couple more questions that have popped up. Okay, this is my apologies. Will this project incorporate affordable housing, low income housing, a public library, or perhaps some green space in the design? I can go back to, and forgive me, Chris, I'm not sure if you've been a part of other engagement sessions that we've had, but definitely one of the major priority that we heard from the community, as well as, you know, just our design team as well. Having open space, having public and accessible open space with a variety of different types is part of the RFP. Affordable housing will be a part of the project. And again, this presentation will be posted, and the presentation deck also will be posted. So if you missed some of the affordable housing mixes and options that Ricardo Lopez presented earlier, that will also be in here as well. You can take a look at. See another questions. The city clearly wants the gas station gone. Are there any public funds available for environmental? Sorry. I can't necessarily speak to what public funds are available for environmental cleanup, but I can certainly add that to the questions that we get answered. Unless anyone from our departments has an answer for that.
I think we could answer it later in an FAQ.
Okay, Tanya asks, how involved has the community been in the project planning? Are there any community priorities which are not incorporated and addressed in the RFP? So from March, we actually started reaching out to local business owners around the site. We have had a couple of community engagement meetings virtually. We had one in person North Elementary. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the website, some of those were recorded. The in-person one wasn't recorded only because that was a hands-on workshop, but definitely the community has been a part of the planning project. These major priorities are from the community input and from the surveys. Open space was one. We definitely had a big outcry for making sure that we have open, accessible open spaces and different types. Another priority that was listed was also including entertainment and retail. Some community members had mentioned, just the lack of, I guess, resources they have in the community, having to go out of the community to shop and to dine and to have smaller entertainment options. They're also, and even though it was not actually on the top of the priorities, affordable housing is definitely part of the project. The type of housing we also discussed in the workshop, as well as some of the surveys that we had with the community that was posted online, as well as emailed out. So hopefully that answered your question, Tanya. And again, I will provide my email address for any other questions that come up. Could this development utilize open space impact fees to create a park or plaza?
So I think there's some eligibility criteria that's required to use the open space impact fee. First, we would have to determine how much is available for that fee, for that fee and for this community area. And then, it would be needed to be used for new publicly owned open space. So this would be something that, would have to be figured out in terms of how that would work, because, this is privately owned right now.
So Cindy, I also, to that question, I dropped a link in there for the reference to our open space impact website with the guidelines and the worksheets that are associated. It's typical when we have a new development like this, that they're creating their own open space as an obligation for them. And the units that they create would then supplement the open space impact fee dollars so that other green spaces in the surrounding communities could be created or upgraded with those fees. But you can feel free to look at that website. I put the link there for you.
Thanks, Noah.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay. Thank you for asking that, John. The state of Illinois recently designated Milwaukee Avenue as a portion of Polish American Historical Corridor. Is there any potential for state funding that would flow from that? So again, thank you for that question. That is something that we also were interested in learning more about. We understand that this happened in July of this year, kind of in the middle of our planning process. That's something we're still trying to understand on how that would affect private development, what that exactly means. Because from my understanding, it was for cultural heritage. And it also had a boundary, if I'm not mistaken. It's not for the entire Milwaukee Avenue. There is a boundary with that House bill. But definitely we will take a look at what would qualify and if this project would be eligible for that. But definitely part of the project is also taking a look at the existing local restaurants, retailers, businesses, residents, and making sure that it's culturally and historically sensitive as well. But when we get more information on that, we'll make sure we add that to our FAQ. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing no additional questions, and again, today is just one touch point. If there's additional questions that come up, you're definitely able to reach out to our department, to myself. I can put in my chat, sorry, in the chat here, my email address. And for those, again, that haven't had an opportunity to take a look at the RFP, additional engagement opportunities that we've had, some of our survey results, you can take a look at the Belmont Triangle website. The RFP is posted to our cityofchicago.gov RFPs website. And again, the recording and the FAQ will be posted within a week. And we will continue to update that FAQ as additional questions arise. So there are no more questions. I thank everybody for attending today. And oh, it looks like we have another question from Juanitas. Our community demands our library and 100% affordable housing. As a resident of the area, will we be getting them? So thank you for your question, Juan. I'm not sure if it's Juan or Juan Edis. Definitely affordable housing is going to be a part of the project, and I know that recently we've had some comments regarding the amount of affordable housing, and that's something that we will definitely address with the development team as proposals come in. And regarding the library, in our proposal, our concept proposal, and as we discussed in other engagement efforts, providing the avenue and the space for community resource space is actually a part of the proposal. If you take a look at the actual RFP and you read the documents and see some of the graphics that we provided, there is a community hub that is part of the project. It's just across from the lawn event space. That is a space that could be a community resource. It could be a variety of things. I believe it's at least 16,000 square feet. And we're hoping that whatever development team comes in, we'll take a look at the priorities that the community mentioned. And in the community hub, as listed in the RFP, as well as the presentation, the library is one of the wants that we heard loud and clear from the community. So we are hoping that the development teams come with some interesting proposals, and definitely we will make sure that anything that we can do to provide support for those developments that we will be here. But we definitely can't promise anything. We can't promise that a library will happen. There's definitely discussions that we've had, and we would entertain the possibility of that happening. Okay, there are no more questions. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending today. And if there are questions that were not answered, please email me, carmen.martinez@cityofchicago.org, as well as you may visit our website for additional ways to communicate. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.